Hi, George Durkee, Columbia College, and this review is for students in both my 63 and 64 classes, ArcGIS and ArcGIS Explorer. And at a meeting the other day with a few students, there was a problem with a few folks who didn't clearly understand unzipping and placing the GIS data folder and where to put files and how to get data files. So this is just a quick, well, I hope it's quick review of those topics in a little more detail. And if you already understand that stuff, if you've done it, then you don't need this. But I'm just going to run through it, and we'll just go into a little more detail on unzipping and things like that. Some of you are Macintosh, Apple people, and haven't unzipped PC files before, though it's essentially the same process. Okay, so if you downloaded the file gis_data.zip, the first step is to extract all the files within that. And if you right-click on GIS data zip and drop down to where it says extract, there's a couple of different extraction files out there. I use ISARC, or maybe it's ISARC, whatever. Anyway, as my extraction, but there's one that comes with Windows, and what you get is a file path that it will extract to. And so it'll usually extract to the folder that you're in. And so I'm in my download folder, and it'll take on the name of the file that it's downloading. So it's downloading to a folder called GIS_data. But notice that within the zip file is already a folder called GIS data. And I hope I can explain this clearly. It's going to be a little bit confusing, but you want this GIS data folder to live right under the C, right in the C drive. And you don't want it to be nested. That is, you don't want it to read GIS_data / GIS_data, because that just adds another layer of file. So I'm going to zap that entire file path. And so right now I have it extracting just directly to the C drive, and it'll extract just that GIS data folder without nesting it inside another folder created by the extraction program. Does that make sense? I hope so. Let's do it. Poof. Okay, so let's go over here and see if it worked. We go over to my C drive, and we go down, and that's an older folder, and I refresh the, press F5 to refresh it. There we go. And there it is, GIS data. And so we unfold that. And now let's just take a look at these folders and go over quickly what they mean. One of your main folders is your base data. And this is where you'll keep things like your topographic maps, your satellite imagery, what are called DEMs, digital elevation models. So those are things that tell the elevation of an area, and they're pretty useful when you start doing analysis and more advanced things in ArcGIS. I've got a little folder called logos. Don't worry about that. But if you're making maps, you can keep small JPEGs there, PDFs, to add as a logo to your map. other types of maps, but the main one we'll be considering or using are topo maps, where you'll keep the standard USGS type topo maps, which come as TIF or even JPG or PDFs extension, and what's called vector data. The two main types of data are vector and raster, and check the book for better definitions of those. But vector data is just points, lines, and polygons. So things like roads, trails, the point where a house is, and polygons, which would be the boundary of a city or something like that, or even the footprint of a house or a school or something is a polygon. And then documents, you want to keep stuff that's important to your GIS work, help files or whatever. It's got an export folder, which is for stuff that you create that you're going to export. It's just a logical place to keep it. Incident data, I think in future revisions, I'm going to start calling that project data. So we brought this up in our meeting the other day with a few students because there was a question on how to store data that I guess in some classes, when you start a project, you have a whole folder devoted to that project, and that includes the data that you're using for the project. And to a certain extent, that's fine. But if you're using base data, the same base data for all of those projects, and you start storing, for instance, topographic maps or digital elevation models or whatever, roads, trails, and you duplicate each file inside each project folder, then you're just taking up an awful lot of hard drive memory. So at a top level, you should be keeping all of your base data that you're going to use again and again. Now, there may be data specifically to your project that you want to use, and that can occupy its own space within your project. And again, I hope that made sense. And so when you create a project, all of your file paths will go to, let's say, your base data or to your project data. And the other point of this is that came up in class the other day, or my little informal get-together with students, was why we put GIS data under the C drive, and that's to make it portable. When you create a project or anything in either ArcGIS Explorer or Arc 10, when you put data into it, it just has a file path to that data. And so if you were to move the GIS data folder to another computer, it would keep that same file path as long as it's under C, and you could use it again on another computer without too much problem. There are a few glitches along the way, but on the whole, that's just an easier way of keeping and maintaining relative file paths. So that's why we put it under the C drive. Now let's look specifically at some file types. And I had already downloaded, or I keep my data already in GIS data folder. And so when I downloaded it for the purposes of this review, I just downloaded a new one, but here's my old one here. And let's look at base data. And we'll look at topo maps. And notice, let's say index. There are, and I'll tell you what index are in a few minutes here, in a few seconds. Get rid of that. Notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 separate files for index. And the index is the bunch of polygons that define a USGS topographic map. It's the outline of where that map is, and it's how you look up that map when you want to download it. And so here, just in the standard Windows file structure, it's 6 separate files. But when you look at it in ArcGIS, it's just one file. So ArcGIS, whether it's Arc Explorer or whether it's ArcGIS 10, combines all those files to make it a working file, a working geospatial file for Arc, and it's called collectively a shape file, SHP extension. So let's drag that in. And we'll wait patiently. There we go. And so obviously the outline of California, and each one of those little squares or rectangles is a specific USGS quad. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And what you can do, so let's say you have put this over a satellite image or a large scale map of California, and right now it's covered with green, but you can make that hollow by just clicking on the symbology here, and it says current symbol, so the fill color is green. So let's make that no color, and the outline, let's make that a little thicker there, is 2, and let's go for well, let's go for red, because why not? It just makes it more visible. And there we go. And so if you click the little information symbol here and click inside the square or polygon, you get the name of it. That's the Bodie quad, and its label is 038, etc. And that's how you find it in the Atlas, the California Geospatial Library, and download it. So we'll do that in just a second here, and we'll keep that. I'm going to keep it on my other screen so you won't see it here. And it's the same in Arc Explorer. We'll go to Add Content, and the reason you want to be able to distinguish between vector and raster data is that when you have a map, when you have any sort of imagery, what you have is raster data. And so we're going to download that same index file. Once again, we're patient people. And we're going to do it. We're going to navigate to C, and my older GIS, and we're going to go to base data and topographic maps. The index is not there. Oh, I have made a mistake. I know that's hard to believe, but the index is a shape and it's not a because it's a polygon, so it's not a raster file. So let's do that again. Shapefile. We go to shapefile, and then we go to C. If I could find C here. Oop. JS data, base data, topo maps, and we're saved. There is index. And we open, and then in Arc Explorer, it zooms in, And we want to do the same thing here. Notice that it gives the symbol here. And in this case, we right-click and we go to Symbol and we choose Outline Fill. So it'll be clear and it'll be outlined in red. And so this is an example of having a base map, and it's a little easier to navigate. So, so if we wanted a map of Bodie, we try and zoom in on Bodie, and in that I held down the Shift key and held down the left mouse button, and then zoomed in. And so Bodie, well, I don't know which one, but in any event, you left click and it'll tell you that that is the Smith quad. So we could wander around and try and find Bodie, but you get the idea for both of these programs, software. Okay, next, what does that mean? So we go to hang on, once again, I'm showing my professionalism here. So there's a number of places you can get data from, and when I need a topographic map, I use the California Geoportal, and they have a download site, and one of the students pointed out that it wasn't working, and I tried it then, and it didn't work. So I don't know, we must have had the wrong address. Anyway, it's www.atlasatlas.ca.gov/download.html, and that'll take you there. Let's do that. And incidentally, the main portal site where you have access to all sorts of geospatial information is portal.gis, etc. there. And other sources of geospatial information, which are almost easier than downloading it, are your county planning office. So when I started working in the county here and doing a sort of GIS projects, I just went to county planning and said, you know, could you guys give me, you know, some data is proprietary, but this is taxpayer funded data, and if you're nice, and you know, they'll usually give it to you. So county planning, Forest Service, Park Service, other federal agencies are good sources, and especially if you're working on a recreation type project and sort of explain what you're trying to do. And they keep data classified in geodatabases, which are like capsules for data, and those are accessible by both ArcExplorer and ArcGIS. And so they'll have a geodatabase for transportation, which is all roads and trails. They'll have a geodatabase for parcels, buildings, things like that. And another one for infrastructure, well, for place names, local place names, and so on. Anyway, it's all pretty well organized if they're up to date. And most of California's GIS offices have brought things up to a really nice standard nowadays. So let's go to the download Geoportal, and you're presented with a whole screen here. So they have, for instance, transportation, and that'll be roads. So notice it's local roads, railroads, state highways, etc. For California. These are pretty old. They're not updating them anymore. Long story, but everybody seems to be going to GeoPDFs, which is annoying. In any event, so what we want are imagery, base maps, and land cover. And base maps. And the specific type is a DRG, digital raster graphic. That's just another thing you've got to memorize. And again, those sorts of file types are in the book. The other is hillshade, and we'll look at hillshade next week for the ARC10 class. And then these are the map sizes. So 7.5 minute is the standard paper map. And so a lot of people, a lot of field people are used to that size. And I went over this in previous videos, but trimmed and untrimmed. Untrimmed is what the map just looks like if you had a full photo image of it. Trimmed takes off all the outside, and you just have the map. And mosaic is a whole bunch of maps together, and there's a separate index file for that. So right now we have the index file for the 7.5 minute trimmed. So let's go in there. And so Bodhi, I've got to look it up here. Oops. Bodhi was 038119B, or 038119B. Let's see if I can remember that. And so 38119, oops, 38, no, 36, 37, 38119. So okay, so now we're going to look for 119B, 119A, 119B1. There we are. So notice that it's several different files here. That one, and that one, or no, 2 files. Okay, that'll make things easier. So we're just going to download them both. 119. And now the TIFF, which is the larger file. So in any event, so now you have 2 files, and within the ARC environment, one will not work without the other. You need them both. And so I'm not going to work. So you've got to go into downloads, highlight both the 0119 files, and then drag them over into your topo maps folder. And so I already have a couple here. So you can see 0_ anyway, that's just one of the maps. And let's drag one of those into our map in ARC10. And let's drag in Columbia, which I downloaded from a previous class. And we just drag that in. We'll put it above the index file because ARC10, we just get a warning here. It's not quite the same. And remember that ARC10 and ARC Explorer draws from the top down. So if you put something on top of, if you put this one on top of this one, it might obscure what you want to show. So let's magnify that. And where's the college? Is it down here? No, there's Columbia. There's the state park. There's San Diego Reservoir. Going a little closer there. So there you are. And what else was I going to go over in this? Let's go back here, see if I missed anything. Okay, well, like I said, go back. If you found this a little confusing, go back and read the file types section on where to put your GIS data. The main thing, as I've said before, is that you have a consistent file structure and file naming such that you can find this stuff again. And so Yeah, okay, I'm rambling on here. Let's keep it short. Okay, so we'll have another meeting next week for both classes, and I'll announce that in my next announcement. So thanks, I hope that helped. If it didn't, definitely get a hold of me, send an email, and we'll go over what you don't understand. Thanks a lot.